They left me alone at her funeral. I stood alone in the freezing rain at my wife's funeral, watching them lower her casket into the ground. The next morning, my children showed up at my door with coffee and smiles, ready to divide up everything I had left. They thought I was just a broken old man they could manipulate. They had no idea what Elizabeth had done to protect me. You won't believe what happened next. But before I continue, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. This story needs to be heard, because what my wife did in her final days changed everything. My name is Henry Mitchell. I'm 67 years old, a retired firefighter from Chicago. I spent 32 years running into burning buildings while everyone else ran out. 32 years of smoke and ash and terror. 32 years of carrying people to safety, of holding dying strangers, of seeing things that would shatter most men into pieces. I've pulled children from car wrecks. I've performed CPR on teenagers who overdosed. I've cut people out of metal tombs. I've watched colleagues die in collapses. I've been burned, broken, and beaten by a job that demanded everything. But nothing, absolutely nothing in those 3 decades of trauma prepared me for standing alone at Mountain Ridge Cemetery on a gray December morning, watching them lower my wife Elizabeth into the frozen ground. The chapel had been empty. Completely empty. Just me in the front pew. A young minister who'd never met Elizabeth, reading from generic notes. And 41 years of memories sealed in a mahogany casket that cost more than our first car. The minister was maybe 30 years old, fresh from seminary probably. He kept checking his notes. He mispronounced Elizabeth's name twice, called her Elizabeth like it was 2 words. Elizabeth would have laughed at that. She always found humor in awkward moments, said it was the only way to survive life's endless capacity for cruelty and absurdity. But she wasn't there to laugh. She wasn't there to squeeze my hand and whisper something witty in my ear. She was in that casket, cold and still and gone. And I was alone. Completely, devastatingly alone. The cemetery was on a hill overlooking the city. You could see downtown Chicago in the distance, the skyscrapers sharp against the gray sky. Elizabeth had always loved that view. We'd driven past this cemetery 100 times over the years. She'd always say, "When I go, put me somewhere with a view." So I did. I bought the plot 3 months ago when the doctors said there was nothing more they could do, when the treatment stopped working, when hope became a cruel lie we told ourselves to get through the day. I stood there in the rain as they lowered the casket with those mechanical straps. The sound of the machinery seemed obscene, clinical, like she was cargo being loaded instead of the love of my life being laid to rest. I pulled out my phone as the casket reached the bottom. Force of habit, really. Always checking, always hoping, always thinking maybe I missed something. No missed calls. No texts. No voicemails. Nothing from Brandon. Nothing from Jessica. I opened Instagram. Don't ask me why. Maybe to torture myself a little more. Maybe to confirm what I already knew deep in my bones. There was my daughter Jessica, 37 years old, posing in front of a massive Christmas tree at some luxury resort in Aspen. The photo was professionally lit, perfectly composed. She wore a designer ski jacket, the kind that cost $1,200. White, pristine, never touched by actual snow. Her makeup was flawless. Her smile was brilliant. In her hand, a glass of champagne, bubbles catching the light. Posted 6 hours ago. The caption read, "Living my absolute best life. Self-care isn't selfish, it's survival. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag gratitude. Hashtag wellness journey. Hashtag luxury living. Hashtag treat yourself." The post had 3,000 likes. Hundreds of comments. People telling her she looked amazing, that she inspired them, that she deserved all the happiness. I felt something cold and heavy settle in my chest, like a stone dropping into deep water. 6 hours ago. 6 hours ago, I was standing in this exact spot in the rain, watching them lower her mother into the ground. 6 hours ago, the woman who gave birth to her, who raised her, who loved her unconditionally for 37 years, was being buried. And Jessica was drinking champagne, posing for strangers on the internet, curating her perfect life. I swiped to the next post, my stomach already churning. There was my son Brandon, 41 years old, shaking hands with some developer at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The photo showed him in an expensive suit, charcoal gray, probably Italian. His watch caught the light, a Rolex, the kind that costs more than I made in a year when I was working. That confident smile I used to be so proud of, back when I thought it meant strength and determination, before I realized it was the smile of someone who'd learned to fake empathy. Posted 8 hours ago, the caption talked about closing a major deal, about momentum and growth, about building an empire, about reaching new heights. 8 hours ago, while his mother was being buried, he was cutting ribbons and posing for business photos. I stood there in the rain, phone in hand, feeling something break inside me. Not break like shatter. Break like when ice cracks on a frozen lake. Slow, deep, permanent. They made their choices, both of them. They chose photo opportunities and networking events and brand partnerships over saying goodbye to the woman who gave them life. They chose their careers, their images, their carefully curated online personas over showing up for their mother one last time. They thought I was just a broken old firefighter, a relic from another era, someone whose grief made them uncomfortable, someone whose pain was inconvenient, someone to be managed, placated, and then forgotten. They had absolutely no idea what was waiting for them, what Elizabeth, in her final act of love and fierce protection, had prepared. The rain kept falling. I stood there until the cemetery workers started looking at me with concern, until the young minister touched my shoulder gently and asked if I needed anything. I shook my head, walked to my truck, drove home through streets blurred by rain and tears. The house was dark when I got there, empty, cold. I turned on the lights and the silence was deafening. 41 years we'd lived in this house. 41 years of footsteps and laughter and arguments and making up. 41 years of Sunday morning pancakes and Christmas mornings and birthday cakes. 41 years of life. Now it was just me and the ghosts. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen where Elizabeth had spent so many hours. Her coffee mug was still in the dish rack, the one that said "World's Okayest Wife," a joke gift I'd given her years ago. She'd used it every morning. I couldn't bring myself to put it away. Her reading glasses were still on the table. Her cardigan was still draped over the back of her chair. The crossword puzzle she'd been working on was still there, half finished, her handwriting getting shakier toward the end as the disease progressed. I touched each object like a talisman. Like if I touched them enough, she'd come back. She didn't. The next morning, when the doorbell rang at 9 o'clock sharp, I was still sitting at that kitchen table. I'd been awake since 4, watching the sun come up, watching the world wake up and continue like nothing had happened. Like Elizabeth hadn't just been erased from it. I knew who it would be before I opened the door. I'd been expecting them. Elizabeth had warned me. There they were, Brandon and Jessica, standing on the porch of the house they'd grown up in, the house their mother had just died in. Not in black. Not in mourning clothes. Brandon wore a charcoal gray suit, expensive Italian fabric that probably cost $3,000. The kind you wear to close business deals, not mourn your mother. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. His tie was perfectly knotted. His hair was styled with product. He looked like he was going to a board meeting. His watch, a Rolex Submariner, caught the morning light. $40,000 on his wrist. Jessica had on cream-colored athleisure wear. Lululemon probably, the expensive kind. Her hair was in a high ponytail, pulled back tight. She looked like she'd just finished a hot yoga class. Her nails were freshly manicured, a soft pink. Her skin glowed with whatever expensive treatments she was getting. She looked healthy, vibrant, alive. Everything her mother wasn't anymore. They carried Starbucks cups, the overpriced kind, and a paper bag from some trendy bakery I'd never heard of. "Morning, Dad," Brandon said. He walked past me into the house like he owned it. Like he'd been there yesterday instead of 3 months ago. The smell of his cologne filled the hallway. Expensive. Overpowering. It made me want to gag. "We brought breakfast," Jessica said, her voice bright and cheerful, like we were having a pleasant Sunday morning visit, like her mother hadn't been buried less than 24 hours ago. She placed a large coffee in front of my usual spot at the kitchen table. "Venti Americano, extra shot, just how you like it, Dad." That small gesture, that calculated kindness, it sat in my stomach like lead, like poison. I knew what was coming. I'd been preparing for this moment since Elizabeth first got sick, since she'd pulled me close 3 weeks before she died and told me what she'd done, what she'd prepared. I sat down slowly in my chair, the chair I'd sat in for 41 years, the chair where I'd eaten breakfast with my wife every morning, where we'd planned our days, where we'd raised our children, where we'd grown old together. This was Elizabeth's kitchen. It should have smelled like her homemade cinnamon rolls, like her laughter, like her life. Instead, it smelled like expensive coffee and lies. Brandon took the chair across from me, Elizabeth's chair, the chair she'd sat in thousands of times. He sat in it like it was nothing, like it was just furniture. He cleared his throat. That executive throat clearing he'd perfected over years of boardroom meetings and presentations. "Listen, Dad," he began, his voice smooth and practiced. "About yesterday. About the funeral. I am so sorry." I just looked at him, didn't say anything, let the silence stretch. Elizabeth had taught me that. She'd say, "Henry, sometimes silence speaks louder than any words. Let people fill it. Let them show you who they are." I was stuck, Brandon continued. It was the closing on the Miami waterfront development. 4 years of work, $65 million on the line. I had to be there. Surely you understand. I'm the principal developer, the project lead. I couldn't just walk away. Investors were flying in from Dubai, from Singapore, major players. I had no choice. He looked at me with Elizabeth's green eyes. The same eyes I'd fallen in love with 41 years ago. But in Brandon, all the warmth had been surgically removed, replaced with something cold, calculating, empty. This company, the one I'd encouraged him to start when he was 25. The one Elizabeth and I had co-signed the first business loan for because we believed in him. Because we thought he'd build something good. Something that helped people. Something with integrity. Mom would have understood, he added, twisting the knife deeper. She was always practical about business. She knew how important this deal was. She told me to go. She said, "Close the deal, Brandon, don't worry about me." The lie was so casual, so smooth. so practiced. But I'd been there. I'd been with Elizabeth every single day for the last 11 months. I'd held her hand through every treatment, every setback, every moment of pain. And I knew what she'd really said about Brandon. In her last weeks, when the morphine made her honest. "He's lost," she'd whispered. "I don't know where he went. I don't know when it happened. But my son, my boy, he's gone." Jessica, who'd been checking her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen, finally looked up. "And my event, Dad," she said, her voice taking on that influencer tone, that practiced authenticity that was anything but. It was huge. A brand partnership with a major wellness company. They flew me first class to Aspen, 5-star resort, full spa treatment. I had a contract, 5 figures for one appearance. I couldn't cancel. I would have been sued. I would have lost everything I've built. My entire career would have been over. You have to understand. Brand partnership, 5 figures, first class. These were the words that mattered to her. Not mother, not funeral, not goodbye. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. At 37, she was a construct of filters and ring lights and sponsored content. A carefully curated product. A brand. Not a person. Not anymore. I remembered a 7-year-old girl. Small and sweet and real. A girl who cried for 2 weeks straight when our golden retriever Duke died. Who refused to go to school. Who wanted to stay home and sleep with Duke's collar under her pillow. Who wrote a letter to heaven in careful crayon. "Dear God, please give Duke extra treats and tell him I love him and I'm sorry I wasn't there when he died." Where did that girl go? When did she disappear? When did she become this hollow thing that measured life in likes and engagement rates and brand partnerships? "It's complicated," Jessica continued, her voice defensive now. "You wouldn't understand. It's my career. It's how I make my living. It's not just posting photos. It's a business. I have followers. I have responsibilities. I have commitments." I let the silence stretch again, just sat there, drinking my expensive coffee that I didn't want, looking at my children who weren't my children anymore. "Anyway," Jessica said, rushing to fill the silence, "I'm completely devastated. This has been so hard. It happened so fast. The words came out practiced, rehearsed, like dialogue she'd prepared, so fast. The lie hung in the air between us. Elizabeth had fought heart disease for 11 months. Not fast, not sudden. 11 months of slow, agonizing decline. 11 months of hospital visits 3 times a week. 11 months of medication adjustments, oxygen tanks, mobility aids. 11 months of watching the woman I loved lose her strength piece by piece. Lose her independence. Lose her dignity. Lose herself. 11 months where I held her hand every single day. Where I helped her to the bathroom. Where I bathed her when she couldn't do it herself. Where I held her hair back when the medications made her sick. Where I whispered that I loved her while she cried from frustration and fear. 11 months where Brandon was too busy with developments. Where Jessica had sponsored retreats she just couldn't miss. Where phone calls went unreturned. Where visits were canceled. Where promises were broken. We sent flowers. Brandon cut in, breaking my thoughts. A huge arrangement. Very tasteful. White roses and lilies. Premium selection. I spent $400. Had them delivered directly to the funeral home. I remembered the flowers. They'd arrived the morning of the funeral. A massive arrangement, professionally done. Beautiful. Impersonal. The card said, with deepest sympathy, from Brandon and Jessica Mitchell. Printed. Not handwritten. Ordered online. 3 clicks and their obligation was fulfilled. Generic sympathy. Purchased and delivered. "Dad," Brandon said, and suddenly his voice changed. The fake sympathy evaporated like morning dew. His tone became harder, more businesslike. More him. "We need to talk. We need to be practical here." "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I knew exactly what he meant. Elizabeth had told me, had prepared me. "I mean," he said, glancing at Jessica, who nodded. "We need to settle the estate. Mom's estate. The estate." Your mother had been in the ground for less than 24 hours. And he was calling her life an estate. Reducing 41 years to assets and liabilities, to numbers on a spreadsheet. "We need to figure out the house," he continued, pulling out his iPad. Of course he had an iPad. Of course he'd come prepared with spreadsheets and projections, the finances, Mom's accounts, the insurance policies. Your situation, my situation, like I was a problem to be solved. A complication in their inheritance, a loose end to tie up. "What situation?" I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. Brandon leaned forward, his executive posture, his deal-making energy. He was in his element now. "Dad, you're 67 years old. This house is 4,000 square feet, 3 stories. You can't maintain it alone. The property taxes are $18,000 a year. The heating costs in winter are insane. The upkeep, the repairs, the yard work. It doesn't make sense for you to stay here." Jessica nodded along, her head bobbing like a puppet. "We're worried about you," she added, her voice dripping with false concern. "All alone in this big house. What if you fall down the stairs? What if you have a medical emergency? What if something happens and there's no one here to help you? You could lie there for days." Brandon pulled up something on his iPad, started swiping through images. I had it all planned out, he said. Of course you did, I thought. We've been looking at some really excellent senior living facilities, he continued. Research. Reviews. This one in Naperville is top-rated. Beautiful grounds. 3 gourmet meals a day. Activities every afternoon. Movie nights. Bingo. Arts and crafts. A full-time nurse on call. 24-hour medical supervision. You'd have friends your own age. You wouldn't be lonely. You'd be safe. He turned the iPad toward me. The screen showed photos of smiling elderly people, playing cards in a bright community room, eating meals in a spacious dining hall, walking through manicured gardens. All of them looked medicated, compliant, contained. The apartments are nice too, Jessica added, leaning in to swipe through more photos. Full bathroom with safety bars, kitchen with a microwave and mini fridge. Your own thermostat, cable TV included. It's only $3,800 a month. Very reasonable. A cage. They were describing a cage with fluorescent lighting and scheduled activities. And the house, Jessica said, her eyes bright now. Excited. This was the part she'd been waiting for. We could sell it. The market is incredible right now. This neighborhood is booming. Young families are paying premium prices. We've already had it appraised. My stomach dropped. What? Just to get a sense of value, Brandon said quickly. For planning purposes. We wanted to be prepared. The appraiser came 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. While Elizabeth was still alive. While she was lying upstairs in our bedroom, struggling to breathe. They'd had someone come through our house, valuing it, calculating their inheritance while their mother was dying. We could easily get $2.2 million, Jessica continued. Maybe 2.4 in a bidding war. This location. The lot size. The bones of the house. It's a teardown for most buyers they'd rebuild. But the land value is incredible. 2.2 million. They'd already done the math, already calculated their shares, already spent the money in their heads. We'd split it 3 ways, Brandon said. Fair and equal. You'd get over $700,000. More than enough for the facility and anything else you need. Plenty left over for emergencies. You'd be set for life. And Jessica and I, well, he smiled that corporate smile, we both have significant expenses. My development company needs capital for the next phase. Jessica's trying to buy a condo in Los Angeles to expand her brand presence on the West Coast. It works out perfectly for everyone. Perfectly for everyone. I sat there looking at them. These people I'd raised. These people who'd grown inside Elizabeth's body, who'd nursed at her breast, who'd learned to walk holding our hands, who'd cried on our shoulders when they were hurt, who'd celebrated every achievement with us. Where did they go? When did they become this? I felt something shift inside me, something Elizabeth had prepared me for in those final weeks. When the morphine made her words slur but her mind stayed diamond sharp, when she'd held my hand with what little strength she had left and told me what she'd done, what she'd prepared, what she'd known would happen the moment her heart stopped beating. No, I said quietly. Brandon blinked like I'd spoken a foreign language. What? No, I repeated, my voice steady. I'm not selling the house. I'm not going to a facility. I'm staying right here. Dad, Jessica said, her influencer voice cracking slightly. Be reasonable. You can't possibly manage this place alone. You're 67. That's not old, but it's not young either. What happens in 5 years? 10 years? What happens when you really can't handle it anymore? Elizabeth and I built this house, I said. We bought it when you were both small. Brandon, you were 6. Jessica, you were 2. Every room has our memories. The kitchen where your mother taught you both to make pancakes, where we had family dinners every night, where we talked about your days, where we laughed, the living room where we had Christmas mornings, where you opened presents, where we took family photos, the backyard where I taught you both to ride bikes, where we had birthday parties, where we planted that oak tree when Jessica was born. Your mother died in our bedroom upstairs. I held her hand. I was with her when she took her last breath. Neither of you were. The room went silent, the kind of silence that hurts. Brandon's jaw tightened, his hands clenched on his iPad. That's not fair, he said, his voice tight. We had obligations. We had commitments. We explained this. Your mother was dying, I said, and for the first time my voice rose slightly. For 11 months, she was dying. You had 11 months to clear your schedule, to make time, to visit, to call, to show up. You chose not to. Every single time, you chose something else. Some deal, some event, some opportunity. And now you want to walk in here less than a day after we buried her and tell me to sell our house and move into a nursing home so you can split the money? It's not a nursing home, Brandon said defensively. It's an assisted living facility. It's very nice. 5-star rated. Get out, I said. What? Get out of my house. Both of you. Right now. Dad, you're being emotional, Jessica said, standing up. Her phone clutched in her hand like a security blanket. You're not thinking clearly. You're grieving. We understand. We'll come back when you're more rational. When you've had time to process. I stood up too. At 67, after 32 years of physical labor, I'm still 6'2". I still have the shoulders of a man who carried people out of burning buildings. I still have the hands that pulled children from twisted metal. I still have the arms that lifted grown men off the ground. And I still have the voice that commanded respect in chaos. That cut through smoke and screams and made people listen. I am thinking clearly, I said, my voice like steel. More clearly than I have in years. Your mother is dead. You didn't come to her funeral. You showed up the next morning with coffee and smiles and spreadsheets. You had our house appraised while she was still alive. While she was still in that bedroom upstairs dying. You planned this. You calculated it. You decided what my life would be and what you'd get out of it. And now you're telling me I'm not thinking clearly? Now leave. Brandon grabbed his iPad. Jessica grabbed her phone and her designer bag. They walked to the door, their expensive shoes clicking on the hardwood Elizabeth and I had installed ourselves 30 years ago. At the threshold, Brandon turned back. His face was red now. Angry. The mask had slipped. You're going to regret this, he said, his voice low and threatening. We're your children. We're your family. We're all you have left. You're going to end up alone and miserable in this house. And when you need help, when you fall, when you have a stroke or a heart attack and you're lying on the floor unable to move, we won't be there. We won't help you. You'll have made your choice. Good, I said. And I closed the door, locked it, put the chain on, and stood there with my hand on the wood, feeling my heart pound, feeling something like strength returning to my bones. I walked upstairs slowly, my knee protesting. Every step hurt these days. Maybe they were right about that. Maybe the house was too big, too many stairs, too much for one man. But it was my house, mine and Elizabeth's, and I'd be damned if I let them take it. I went into our bedroom, the room where we'd slept together for 41 years, the room where we'd conceived both our children, the room where we'd held each other through good times and bad, the room where I'd watched her die 3 days ago. Her nightstand was exactly as she'd left it. I opened the drawer. Inside was a manila envelope with my name written in her shaky handwriting, the handwriting that had gotten progressively worse over the last months as her strength faded. She'd given me this envelope 2 weeks before she died, made me promise not to open it until after the funeral, made me swear on our love. Now I understood why. Inside was a letter, written on her favorite stationery, the kind with little watercolor flowers in the corner, the kind she'd used for important correspondence our entire marriage. My dearest Henry, it began. Her handwriting was shaky but readable. If you're reading this, I'm gone. If I know our children, and I do, better than I wish I did, they've already shown up. They've already asked about the house, about the money, about putting you somewhere convenient. I'm sorry, my love. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I made excuses for them for so long. I'm sorry I believed they'd change. I believed right up until the end that somewhere inside them were the children we raised, the kind children, the caring children, the children who loved us. But I was wrong. I saw it clearly in the end, when everything else fell away and all that was left was truth. 3 months ago, when Brandon visited, he stayed for 20 minutes, spent 18 of those minutes on his phone talking about cap rates and ROI. He asked me about the house, about what we planned to do with it, about whether we'd updated the will recently. He didn't ask about my health. He didn't ask about my pain. He didn't ask about you. He asked about assets. Jessica was worse in her own way. She came 6 weeks ago. She stayed for an hour. She spent 40 minutes taking photos of the house for her Instagram. She said it was vintage. She said it had great light. She said her followers would love it. Then she posted about how hard it was watching her mother decline. But she filtered the photos first. She made sure her outfit looked good. She made sure the lighting was flattering. She turned my dying into content. So I did something, Henry. Something I should have done years ago. Something to protect you. Something to make sure you're taken care of when I'm gone. I went to see Victoria Sullivan. Remember her? Her father was David Sullivan. You worked with him. You saved his life in that warehouse fire in '94. When that beam fell and you went back in. You pulled him out. He never forgot. Neither did Victoria. When I called her, she came to the house the next day. I told her everything. She helped me. She understood. Henry, I changed my will. Everything goes to you. Every single thing. The house. The bank accounts. The investment accounts. The life insurance policies. All of it. Brandon and Jessica are in the will. They each get $1. One symbolic dollar so they can't claim they were forgotten. So they can't say I wasn't of sound mind. $1 to show that I remembered them. I just chose not to leave them more. But there's more, my love. I set up a trust for the grandchildren. $500,000. For education. For weddings. For first homes. For the things that matter. They can't touch it until they turn 25. Brandon and Jessica have no access. They can't borrow against it. They can't manipulate the children into signing it over. Victoria made it ironclad. Bulletproof. I also made videos, Henry. Several of them. They're in the safe behind my side of the closet. The combination is our anniversary. 061183, June 11th, 1983. The day you made me the happiest woman alive. In those videos, I explain everything. My reasoning. My decision. My sound mind. My full capacity. I knew they'd try to fight it. I knew they'd claim I was coerced. That I wasn't thinking clearly. That the medications affected my judgment. So I made the first video 2 months ago. when I was still relatively strong, when my mind was clear, when there was no doubt. I made another one 4 weeks ago, and another one 10 days ago. 3 videos spanning 2 months, all saying the same thing, all explaining the same reasoning, all witnessed and notarized. Victoria has copies too, in her safe, with instructions. Use them, Henry. Don't hesitate. Don't feel guilty. Protect yourself. Don't let them bully you. Don't let them guilt you. Don't let them manipulate you the way they manipulated us for years. They stopped being our children a long time ago. I don't know when it happened. I don't know where we went wrong. I've spent countless hours wondering, was it something we did? Something we didn't do? Did we spoil them? Did we not push them hard enough? Did we give them too much? Too little? I'll never know. And I've made peace with that. All I know is this: the people they became are not the people we tried to raise. And you deserve to live the rest of your life in peace. In the home we built together, without them trying to take it from you, without them making you feel guilty for wanting to keep your memories, without them treating you like an inconvenience to be managed. I love you, Henry Mitchell. I have loved you every day for 41 years. Through every fight, every challenge, every moment of doubt, through raising children and losing parents and building a life, through joy and sorrow and everything in between. You have been my rock, my shelter, my home, and I will love you beyond death, beyond the grave, forever. Take care of yourself, my darling. Live. That's all I want. That's my final wish. Just live. Don't spend your remaining years grieving. Don't let them take your joy. Don't let them steal your peace. Live for both of us now. Live the life we planned to have together. Do the things we talked about. See the places we wanted to see. Be happy. Please, my love, be happy. Forever yours, Elizabeth Ann Mitchell. I sat on our bed, holding that letter in my shaking hands, and I cried. Not the silent tears I'd been holding back for days. Not the dignified grief I'd shown at the funeral, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere primal. From the very core of my being. I cried for Elizabeth, for the years we'd never have, for the grandchildren she'd never see grow up, for the life that had been cut short. I cried for myself, for the loneliness that stretched ahead, for the empty house, for the cold bed, for the silence. And I cried because she'd known. She'd seen what I couldn't see. She'd protected me, even as she was dying. Even as her body failed, her mind had stayed sharp enough to plan, to prepare, to make sure I'd be okay. That night, I called Victoria Sullivan. She answered on the second ring. Henry, she said, her voice warm. I was expecting your call. How are you holding up? I've been better, I admitted. My children came by this morning. I know, she said. I've already received 3 voicemails from Brandon's attorney, and 2 from Jessica's. They've retained separate counsel. They're going to fight this. Can they win? I asked, fear creeping into my voice. No, Victoria said firmly. Absolutely not. Henry, Elizabeth was incredibly thorough. I've handled estate cases for 23 years. I've never seen someone prepare so meticulously. She had a full psychiatric evaluation 2 months ago. 3 different psychiatrists, all confirming her mental capacity. She had her physician, Dr. Hassan, sign multiple affidavits. She had her cardiologist sign affidavits. She made 3 separate videos, weeks apart, all explaining her reasoning. She was witnessed by myself and 2 other attorneys. Everything was notarized. Everything was documented. And Henry, she paused. I have to tell you, those videos are powerful. They're going to destroy any case Brandon and Jessica try to make. What do I need to do? I asked. Nothing yet, Victoria said. Let them file their contest. Let them spend money on lawyers. Let them make their arguments. Then we'll respond with everything Elizabeth prepared. We'll bury them. Trust me, Henry. Your wife thought of everything. 3 days later, Brandon showed up at the house again. Without Jessica this time. Without the fake sympathy. Without any pretense. He pounded on the door. Hammered on it with his fist like he was trying to break it down. Open up, he shouted. Open this door. I looked through the peephole. His face was red, twisted with rage. I opened the door but kept the chain on. What do you want, Brandon? What did you do? He screamed. What did you do to Mom? How did you manipulate her? I just looked at him through that 4-inch gap. Your mother, I said calmly, had more clarity in her final weeks than you've had in your entire adult life. You poisoned her against us, he shouted. You turned her against her own children. She was dying and you took advantage. You made her change her will. You coerced her. Your mother changed her will 2 months ago, I said, when she could still walk, when she could still think clearly, when she knew exactly what she was doing. This is my house, Brandon screamed, his voice breaking. Mine. Do you understand? I'm the successful one. I'm the one who made something of myself. Not you. You're just a retired firefighter. You didn't earn this. You don't deserve it. I worked for it. I built a career. I built a company. And there it was, the ugly truth beneath all the suits and smiles. He didn't see me as his father. He saw me as someone who hadn't achieved enough. Someone beneath him. someone who didn't deserve what he wanted. Get off my property, I said. Or what? He challenged, pressing his face close to the gap. What are you going to do, old man? Call the cops? They won't do anything. I'm your son. Or I'll call them myself, I said quietly. And there are a lot of police officers in this city who remember me, who worked with me, who I pulled out of fires, who I saved. How many of them remember you? His face went pale, then red. Then he screamed something incoherent and kicked the door. I closed it, locked it, and called Victoria. She told me to file a police report, to document everything. I did. 2 officers came. Young guys, but professional. They took my statement. They reviewed my security camera footage. They went to talk to Brandon at his hotel. He denied everything at first. Then they showed him the video. He got a warning. A formal written warning. If he came back, he'd be arrested for harassment and trespassing. 2 weeks later, his lawyer filed a contest of the will. The document was 30 pages long, filled with legal language and accusations, claiming Elizabeth had been coerced, claiming diminished capacity, claiming undue influence, claiming elder abuse, claiming I'd isolated her from her children, claiming I'd manipulated her medications, claiming I'd taken advantage of a dying woman. Each accusation was more insulting than the last, more false, more disparate. Victoria filed a response within 48 hours. Her response was 50 pages. It included the psychiatric evaluations, the physician affidavits, the timeline showing Brandon and Jessica's absence, the Instagram posts from the day of the funeral, and the videos. She sent copies to Brandon's lawyer. In the first video, made 2 months before her death, Elizabeth sat in our bedroom. She looked thin but strong. Her voice was clear. Her mind was sharp. My name is Elizabeth Ann Mitchell, she said, looking directly at the camera. Today is September 21st, 2024. I am making this video to confirm that I am of sound mind and body when creating my will. I have not been coerced. I have not been influenced. I have not been manipulated. I am making these decisions freely, with full understanding of their consequences. I am leaving my entire estate to my husband Henry because he is the only person who has truly loved me unconditionally. My children, Brandon and Jessica, have shown me through their consistent actions over many years that they care more about money and status than family. They have missed important moments. They have broken countless promises. They have chosen their careers, their images, their social media presence over their relationship with me. This is not anger speaking. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. This is a mother who has finally seen her children for who they really are, and chooses to protect the man who has stood by her side for 41 years. The camera caught every word, every tear that rolled down her cheek, every moment of absolute lucidity. Brandon's lawyer withdrew the case 3 days after seeing the videos, sent Victoria a Terci email. After reviewing the evidence, we are withdrawing our contest. But they didn't stop. They couldn't stop, because it was never really about the will. It was about control, about getting what they felt they deserved, about not accepting no. Jessica called me 2 weeks after the case was withdrawn, crying. Real tears this time, or at least more convincing ones. Dad, please, she sobbed into the phone. I don't have anywhere to live. My landlord is raising my rent from $3,000 to $4,000. I can't afford it. The sponsorships dried up. The algorithm changed. My engagement is down 70%. I need help. Just for a few months. Just until I get back on my feet. I'm your daughter. You have a career, I said. You have your wellness brand. You have thousands of followers. That's not real income, Dad, she said, her voice desperate now. That's not stable. Most of those followers are fake anyway. Bought followers. The real engagement is terrible. I'm barely making minimum wage after expenses. I need help, please. My daughter wouldn't have tried to steal my home, I said quietly. My daughter would have shown up to her mother's funeral. My daughter would have visited while her mother was dying. But you're not that daughter anymore. I don't know who you are, but you're not my daughter. Dad, no, wait, she started. I hung up. Blocked her number. Blocked Brandon's number. Changed my phone number entirely. A week later, Brandon showed up at the house again. Drunk this time. At midnight. Pounding on the door. Screaming. You can't do this, he yelled. That house is mine. That money is mine. I earned it. Do you hear me? I earned it by being your son. By existing. You owe me. I called the police again. The same 2 officers came. This time they arrested him. Public intoxication. Disturbing the peace. He spent the night in jail. His wife Angela had to bail him out in the morning. She called me the next day. Crying. Real crying. Not performed crying. Henry, I'm so sorry, she said. I had no idea. I didn't know what he'd been doing. What he'd tried to do. Victoria sent me the videos. Elizabeth's videos. I watched them. All of them. And I'm horrified. I'm so sorry. I know, I said gently. You're a good woman, Angela. You always have been. This isn't your fault. I told him, she continued, her voice shaking. I told him if he ever tries anything like that again, I'm filing for divorce. I'm taking the kids. I'm leaving. He has to make this right, or we're done. That's when the visit started. The grandchildren visits. Every other Saturday. Angela brings them, drops them off at 10, picks them up at 4. Brandon stays in the car, never comes to the door, can barely look at the house. The kids, they're wonderful. 11, 9, and 7 now. Bright and funny and kind. Everything their father isn't anymore. They don't know what happened. They don't know what their parents tried to do. And I'm not going to tell them. Not yet. Not while they're young. But someday, when they're older, when they can understand, I'll tell them about their grandmother. About Elizabeth. About her strength and her love. About how she protected me. About how she protected them. For now, we just spend Saturdays together. I take them to the aquarium, to the science museum, to the park. We bake cookies in Elizabeth's kitchen. Chocolate chip, her recipe. We play board games. We watch movies. We make memories. Real memories. The kind their parents are too busy for. The kind that matter. Jessica eventually got a real job, teaching yoga at a studio in Evanston, $22 an hour. No more luxury vacations. No more designer clothes. No more champagne and photo shoots. Just real work. Honest work. She's better for it, I think. More grounded. More real. Still superficial in ways I don't understand. Still posting online. But different somehow. Humbled. She hasn't called me in 6 months. I don't call her either. Brandon had to sell his condo in Miami. The developments weren't going as well as he'd claimed. He'd over-leveraged. Over-borrowed. Put everything on credit. He had to downsize. Move back to Chicago. Get a real job working for someone else's development company. No more being the principal. No more calling the shots. Just another employee. Another face in a cubicle. I don't take pleasure in their struggles. I really don't. I'm not vindictive. I'm not cruel. I'm just tired. Tired and sad. Sad that it came to this. Sad that my children became people I don't recognize. Sad that Elizabeth had to spend her final days protecting me from our own children. But I also feel something else. Something Elizabeth gave me in her final act of love. I feel free. 6 months after Elizabeth died, I made a decision. I sold the house. Not because Brandon and Jessica wanted me to. Not to put money in their pockets. But because Elizabeth was right. She was always right. It was too big. Too many stairs my knees couldn't handle anymore. Too many rooms filled with memories that hurt instead of healed. Too much house for one man. I sold it for $2.4 million. 3 young families bid against each other. They were going to tear it down, build something modern, something for their growing families. It hurt to sign those papers. To know that the house where we raised our children would be demolished. That the kitchen where Elizabeth taught them to cook would be ripped out. That the bedroom where we loved each other for 41 years would be destroyed. But I also felt relief, like I was finally letting go of something heavy I'd been carrying. I used some of that money to buy a small condo in Lincoln Park. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,500 square feet, all on 1 floor, no stairs. A balcony with a view of Lake Michigan. Everything new, everything clean, everything manageable. A place where I could build new memories instead of drowning in old ones. The rest of the money, over $1.5 million, went into the trust for the grandchildren. Elizabeth's trust. I added $700,000 to what she'd already put in. Victoria restructured it, made it even more secure. Brandon and Jessica can't touch it, can't borrow against it, can't manipulate the kids into signing it over. The kids will get it when they turn 25. For college, for graduate school, for weddings, for down payments on homes, for starting their own families, for building lives free from their parents' greed. Every Sunday, I go to Mountain Ridge Cemetery. I bring flowers, white roses, her favorite. I sit on the bench next to her grave, the one with the view of the city, and I talk to her. I tell her about my week, about the grandkids, about the condo, about the sunrise over the lake. You were right, I tell her. About everything. You were always right. The wind comes in from the lake, carrying the smell of water and possibility. And I can almost hear her voice, almost feel her hand in mine. You're free now, Henry, she would say. Live. Live for both of us. So I do. I wake up every morning in my small, bright condo. I make coffee using her old coffee maker, the one thing I kept from the house. I watch the sunrise paint the lake gold and pink. I read the paper. I do the crossword puzzle she would have done. I call my buddies from the fire station. We meet for breakfast every Thursday at the same diner we've been going to for 30 years. We tell the same stories. We laugh at the same jokes. We remember the same fires, the same saves, the same losses. I'm not a father anymore. Not really. That relationship died when my children showed up the morning after their mother's funeral with coffee and spreadsheets, when they tried to take everything we'd built, when they proved that blood doesn't always mean family. But I'm still a grandfather. I'm still the man who takes the kids to the aquarium, who bakes cookies on Saturdays, who listens to their stories, who loves them unconditionally. And I'm still Elizabeth's husband. Even in death, even after 41 years, even now, I'm still the man she loved, the man she protected, the man she set free. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. This story isn't about revenge, it's about love. About a woman who loved her husband so completely that her last act on earth was protecting him. About the hard truth that sometimes the people we love most become strangers. That family is defined by actions, not blood. That real love is shown in sacrifice, not words. Elizabeth's final gift wasn't the house or the money. It was freedom. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from obligation. Freedom from people who had stopped being family long ago. And I'm living that gift every day. Every sunrise. Every laugh with old friends. Every Saturday with grandchildren who still know how to love. Every Sunday at her grave where I tell her about my life. Our life. The one she made possible. What would you have done? Would you have fought back? Would you have given in? Would you have honored your partner's final wishes even when your children tried to take everything? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the most important stories are the ones about love that protects. About strength that endures. About choosing yourself when everyone else chooses greed. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, it's never too late to start over. It's never too late to choose freedom. It's never too late to live.